joining me for another episode of So Zoom In. Please hit like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. You know, baby steps. Tonight, I will be speaking with Bruce Nahin. He does a lot of the business affairs side of television and film. He also has been a producer and executive producer. He has sat on the film commission for the city of Santa Clarita, but what's kind of the most exciting is he was the co-founder of the world famous Chippendales dancers. So there's quite a story behind that. And it's currently on Discovery Plus, but he's just coming on in. So let's talk with him about that. So much for joining me. I really appreciate it. How are you doing?
It's been a busy, hectic day.
You know, when don't you have a busy, hectic day?
Well, today, one of my clients was an investor in that movie in New Mexico. So it made it a little more hectic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, he's one of a million clients, but
yeah,
you know, he does have $1 million invested in this movie that's now dead.
Yeah. And I think Alec Baldwin's career is dead too, but
well, you know, we'll have to see how the facts come out. Don't know. I keep hearing them all over the place.
Well, that's just everyone has a different version of something, right?
Well, the only thing I know that we know is IATSE released a press release saying their people walked off the set the day before under unsafe conditions. So there was no IATSE armorer there.
Oh.
I also heard a report saying an AD who was a local hire had some guns and handed one of them to Mr. Baldwin and said it was clean, but no one went through any of the protocols that the Producers Guild and the other guilds have, taking the gun apart, looking down it, and Mr. Baldwin just took her at her word, which is a problem for him because he knows the rules.
Right. Well,
so we'll see.
I lost you there. Okay.
Huh?
I see your forehead. I don't see the rest of you.
Well, it's not going to stay that way because it's on my lap, because you caught me at a time that's not the best. But I'll try and hold it. Why don't you go ask your questions, because we're going to keep losing the phone.
Well, do you want to set up somewhere so you don't have to hold on to it?
No, I'm okay. Let's just do it.
All right, cool. Well, first of all, I think it's very exciting that you are a co-founder of the world famous Chippendales dancers. And it's now a limited docu-series on Discovery Plus, which I've seen.
And everybody else should go sign up and see it too.
Yes, it's very well done, especially if you like true crime stories. And I have to say though, when you first come on, you didn't like the idea of being part of it.
Thought it was a stupid idea.
Well, but yet you still, what inspired you to go on with it?
The place was packed.
Yeah, well,
I said it was stupid the day before.
The day before. So, all right, so it's a pop phenomenon. It's definitely part of our pop culture.
No. Yeah, I'm not going to ask your age because it's none of my business, but women of a certain age, my age, during the second wave of feminism, apparently were looking for this as some sort of validation of their equality with men. So rather than trying to elevate men, they became pigs like men.
Well, yes, and from some of the video footage in the series, it kind of proves that, and it kind of fit with the whole realm of the 70s and 80s.
Right, but I wasn't in tune. I was just a brand new lawyer. How do I know?
Right. Well, you had fun, right?
But what I'm saying is I wasn't connected to the second wave of feminism.
Right.
After that, I had a chance to meet with Betty Friedan, Gloria Steinem, and I understood what Chippendales meant to the second wave of feminism. Right. Looking at your age, you're probably more the third wave because you're not. If people notice Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton still wear pantsuits, you never see them in dresses.
This is true. This is true.
Because that a dress was part of the patriarchy. That was part of how we enslaved you.
Okay. Well, personally, I love dresses. You know, so
but I'm telling you the time.
The time. Well, and that was part of the time, and it was pretty wild and crazy, and you know, and you guys had a lot going on, and I did not realize it started in Los Angeles. I always thought it was part of New York, so that was something nice to learn about it. That it was actually born in West Hollywood. which I was
It
thinking.
was born in West LA,
Oh,
kind of Mar Vista,
LA.
on Overland in Venice.
Okay. All right. With its own building. Sorry about that. Because I was thinking, I was watching it, how popular it would be in West Hollywood now. Even though I know it was made for the ladies, I was just thinking, wow.
Well, we did periodically do a boys' night. Oh. And originally my dancers were afraid of it.
Really? Why?
Well, homophobic.
Well, of course.
But when they saw the tips that night, the tips were greater than you ladies.
They weren't still asking money, right?
So we did it periodically.
Oh, right. So, but you guys had a lot of fun doing that, right? Did you? Now you were the attorney, so how active were you in the whole running of the business?
Well, they called me the attorney because there's no documentation to prove I was a co-founder. But my dad and I own 10%.
Okay.
But it's hard to prove 40 years later with the corporate books gone. So they can only call me what I prove to be. So I am what they say I am.
Okay. Well,
but I was there from the beginning to the end.
Did you go to New York a lot, or do you just pretty much?
I went to New York twice a week.
Oh, wow. Okay. And what was that like, going back and forth?
Well, New York was crazy. Flying was crazy. TWA would land in St. Louis, and half the time I'd get snowed in during the winter. I'd stay at a hotel coming home.
Oh, wow.
So that was already in the planning. I was supposed to be in New York at Nick's office the day of the killing.
And
so I often wonder, if I was there, could we have stopped the gunman together, or would I have been shot?
Well, I'm sure it sounded, from the recording, it sounded like everything just happened so fast and unexpected. So.
Right. Sure, but if I was in the room with him instead of still in LA,
well,
how would things maybe have been different?
Well, it sounded like you were always trying to keep things calm between Nick and Steve, right?
Exactly. I was there. See, because Nick owned 40% of the touring rights and Steve owned 40%. That 10% was mine. So I was the swing vote.
Okay. And they just ignored you, or how?
No. They would talk to me, not to each other.
Okay. And this was
they couldn't stand to be together.
And this is all pre-cell phone, pre-internet, so you actually had a phone.
Right. When I would land in New York, I used to have an AT&T credit card, which allowed me to make long distance phone calls without putting quarters in the phone.
Wow. It seems like a whole different life today than it was then.
Well, I don't know that you find many phone booths today.
I don't think I've seen one in a very long time. But okay, so when the shooting happened, how did you find out about it? Steve
called me on the phone and told me Nick was killed.
How did he find out about it?
Well, he killed him.
Well, I know, but but he was playing the game of pretending like he didn't know, right?
I don't know. I don't remember how he said he found out.
Okay. And I think in the documentary, it said that he told you the killer did him a favor.
Yes, he did. The killer did him a favor. He did say, but I don't know how he said he knew Nick was killed.
Well, this is also, and I mean, especially going back because, you had Hugh Hefner in the very beginning with Dorothy Stratton, and how this whole thing out with Paul.
Hugh Hefner taught me trademarks.
Okay.
He was like a mentor to me.
So you guys spent a lot of time at the Playboy Mansion then?
No, Steve did. I spent a lot of time talking to Hugh Hefner in meetings.
Oh, so you're the smart one. Okay. So what's that? Oh, I lost you.
Be at the mansion, but I wasn't involved in the activities of the mansion. I was pretty straight-laced.
Okay. All right. So he taught you trademarks. What kind of trademarks were you used?
Well, he taught me how, instead of us going out, and you heard about the calendar and the mismatched dates, but air fresheners, greeting cards, mugs, things like that, instead of us making them, we licensed other people the right to use our logo.
Okay.
And that all came from him. He also gave us the cuffs and collars.
That was Dorothy's idea, right? Dorothy Stratton's idea, because she was
Yes.
a Playboy
Yeah,
playmate.
she was Playmate of the Year.
Right. Oh, beautiful woman.
Which
Tragic
was
story.
a big deal back then.
So since she and Snyder were such an integral part in having the formation of the Chippendales, what was
Yes, they were.
what was it like when she was killed and he killed himself?
Well, they had already been kicked out of the club, not her, but him.
Because he was
I,
being
I, I think I mentioned that every time I saw him, I felt oily and needed to take a shower.
right.
Because I didn't like him. Steve didn't like him. And we didn't like the way his idea was good, but we knew we can refine it. We were given early on the idea of hiring an MC who was full of jokes and stuff. And that's where we got Richard Barsh. We also were given a Harlequin novel. You girls are dirtier than we are. When I read the Harlequin novel, I read the middle of the Harlequin novel, and who needs pornography? Just read the damn book. If a 16-year-old boy knew all he had to do was go to CVS and buy a book,
right? You can
and
learn
take it home, he would have had. He didn't need Playboy. But when I read it and I realized they were all costumed, they all had backstories.
Right, which women love.
Well, yeah, I mean, without getting too adult in here,
right,
there's a difference between men and women and how they get aroused. And
right.
and having learned backstories, costumes, slow pace is how we patterned the show.
Which is
after a Harlequin novel.
Right. And you did really well with that formula.
Right. We never got beyond the center of the book because the show was over, but that was the idea.
Well,
we built the backstories, we built the costumes.
Right.
And that's what made the show take off.
And okay, so when it opened up in New York, things were going really well. You guys were,
Yeah, New York had 1,000 seats. LA only had 200.
So when it became on tour, this was because of the napkin deal between Nick and Steve.
Yeah, what the documentary didn't talk about was the motivation for the napkin deal. It wasn't just Steve and Nick having a beer and Steve saying, okay, I'll give you the touring rights in perpetuity. What Nick said to Steve is, I know a club that wants Chippendales in New York. I'll arrange that if you give me the touring rights.
So he wanted to use that as a bartering chip.
Yes. And that didn't really come out in the editing in the documentary.
Okay. And Steve didn't really know what he was doing, allegedly?
Well, no, that's what the talking head said. The reality is Steve knew what he was giving up. He was giving up nothing. We had no tour.
Right.
It was just an idea. But what he was getting is in return for giving up 50% of nothing, he got New York.
Which he really wanted.
And the documentary wasn't clear. They made it seem like it was only the napkin deal within no quid pro quo, which is why when I challenged it in court later, the court says, well, you did get New York, so go away.
Well, and you knew nothing about it till after the fact?
I wasn't there that night. It was done at night at a local place that we would go to on Overland International.
Right. Okay. So do you miss those days? Well, before all the tragedy happened.
Well, a single young man like I was, it was novel.
Yeah.
It was fun to be wanted. Let's put it that way. But now I'm 68 and I'd probably die of a heart attack.
No. Well,
I couldn't do cocaine. I couldn't do a lot of the other things I did back then either. Time marches on, if you know what I mean.
Well, it seems like it's a different time now, of course. The 80s seemed to be all about the, affluence and, you know, the overabundance of stuff, you know, whether it's.
I don't know if I started it today, it would work. I'm not sure that the Generation Z and millennials would particularly be motivated by that. Your gender has become more sexually promiscuous, more sexually aggressive, just in their normal lives now.
Yeah.
I don't know that they needed to have an emporium to live out a fantasy. Women are just different now.
Yeah. Well, I think for the time, that's why it did so well. It was something.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if the Z's and millennial women today, having the liberties they have now, would have needed something like that to help manifest
their desires.
Yeah, exactly.
There's still a Chippendales around, right?
There's a Chippendales in Las Vegas at the Rio, but it's very different.
Yeah.
Instead of people sitting in a circle and touchy-feely, putting money in the jock straps, which we learned to call G-strings, because that's what you girls called that apparatus.
Okay.
And we wanted it to be female friendly, so the boys weren't wearing jock straps, they were wearing G-strings. Although we know the difference, but we did adopt the title.
You make the customer happy, right?
Exactly.
Right. Okay. All right. So when the murder happened and there was all this publicity, was everything still going strong in the clubs? Were people still showing up left and right?
Oh, sure. It was a pure greed play. It was a play on Steve's part to get more. Yeah. To get rid of Nick's touring rights, Nick's 25% of New York, and to keep it for himself. And when Nick died, he bought those rights back from his estate.
Oh, wow. But when he ended up in jail,
yes,
he ended up committing suicide?
Maybe.
Okay. Would there
so did Jerry Epstein, right?
Right. Lots of unanswered questions.
My feeling is that that's how the system gets rid of trash.
Okay, they just take care of it.
That's my guess. I mean, when I heard of Jerry Epstein, I said, another Banerjee.
Right.
Convenient, isn't it, that all these people with all this information die in jail, in a cell by themselves, and always by hanging, which looks the same as a broken neck.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That is true. So I guess you would know a lot of information. I guess just kind of the things you were doing lent itself to that. Or you
yes.
Sort of things. So how did this documentary come about?
I was shopping the idea of a documentary. I'm still shopping a limited series.
Right.
Oh, if anyone wants to follow me on Instagram, you can see the trials and tribulations. It's at Bruce Nahin, Nahin. But I have been shopping it for a while, and I got a company called Lightbox Entertainment in Great Britain interested. And they co-produced it with me.
Okay.
I think I'm listed as a consulting producer because under FCC regulations, you can't be an interviewee and someone with credits.
Well, that's okay.
So I got listed as a consulting producer rather than a co-producer, which was what my contract said.
Okay.
I'm told in Great Britain, where they're less restricted in the Amazon version, and for those of your audience who are in Europe, they can watch it on Amazon.
Right.
Because they've got European rights. My credits are different.
Okay. Well, you can get it on Discovery Plus through Amazon here.
No, but you're only going to get the LA version. You'd have to get Amazon UK, which is different than Amazon US.
So it's a different version of the series?
Just the credits.
Oh, just the credits, I see. Okay. All right. Well,
I made sure of that.
So have you thought of turning it into an actual feature?
My idea is to turn it into like Ryan Murphy's now doing impeachment, the assassination of Monica Lewinsky.
Okay.
I want to do it there.
Ooh.
Same kind of 8-part series. In the case of impeachment, Monica's finally vindicated.
Is she?
You know, after all these years, I think so.
Okay. Well,
I mean, well, she is what she was. She
yeah.
was a teenage girl seduced by the most powerful man in the world, not a homewrecker coming onto him and seducing him, which is Hillary's version.
Right. Yeah.
So I think her story, for those of us who are grown-ups and have had teenage children, can understand the story. If you were 18 years old and you were an intern in the White House, the President of the United States wanted to engage you. I mean, I can't speak to you individually, but you gender collectively with an age might well be interested.
Well, you
feel honored. And it's hard for you to tell me, no, I would never, because you're not her.
Yeah.
But it did give an opportunity for her to reveal herself. Remember, that was all going on in the 80s too.
Right. A lot of stuff was in the 80s, yeah.
So, well, actually Clinton was 92, but it's the same thing pretty much. Same era. But anyway, my idea is to do a show that's like an 8-parter, in-depth, rise and fall, the Curse of Chippendales docudrama style.
And go from the beginning to the end, or?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
and I've been in talks with some people that can maybe make that happen.
Well,
time will tell. I can't say it is happening, but it might happen.
Well, it was fascinating to watch, especially with the actual footage, you know, to see the grainy
well,
TV.
Yeah, well, that was the theme that I wanted. I noticed ABC did an expose a few weeks ago, and most of the people talking were third parties. A lady who put together a Spotify podcast that I participated in, a guy who wrote a book called Deadly Dancing, some talking heads from ABC's Legal and Analysis, but it wasn't our story, it was their story. When we did Curse of Chippendales, we wanted to do our story. So everything was by people who were there. We didn't have any talking heads at all in that.
Wow. The whole time you're with Chippendales, did you practice law separately?
Yeah, I was a music lawyer.
Oh, okay. And that was here in Los Angeles?
Yeah, in 1992, I represented my adopted cousin, a guy named Andre Young, in his contract with Death Row.
Oh, and how'd that go?
Andre's goes by name of Dre these days.
Wow, so that was pretty high profile case.
Oh, yeah, but I was just the cousin who did some contracts. You know, I wasn't actively involved in Death Row. But I was a music lawyer.
And you were also appointed to the Film Commission for Santa Clarita, right?
Yeah, I was the first, there were two of us. Okay. So I was the first film commissioner, co-film commissioner. I represented the east side of Santa Clarita and somebody else represented the west side. So somebody had Newhall and Valencia, I guess it was, and I had Canyon Country and Agua Dulce and whatever. I forget exactly the division of labor, but something like that.
And what was that whole experience like?
Well, we took an idea and it became the economic base of Santa Clarita. They wanted it to be the foundation of their economic development of their new city in 1987. And now I'm told it's the second largest shoot area in the county, which means in the world, because LA is what it is. And now there's studios and there's movie ranches and a lot goes on out there. A lot of TV is shot out there.
That's pretty exciting. You had a part of that.
Yeah, I did that for 5-6 years. And then I got into business affairs and movies. You know, I like executive producing. I like mentoring and teaching young filmmakers. And I like making movies. I've got a client and I know this is before you started recording, but I was saying then, I have a client who was one of the financiers in the tragedy in New Mexico.
Yeah. And how's
So I get involved developing movies.
So how's he taking that whole thing? Yeah, with this, is everything up in the air or?
Well, he just feels like he lost $1 million. How would you feel? I mean, taking aside the young lady, the mother who died, you're an investor who doesn't know her from Adam,
right?
But you now know you're not getting your investment back.
Yeah,
And you had thought this movie would get done, would get sold to distribution, you'd make a profit, and now the movie's half done, you're getting nothing.
Yeah, and you probably won't be too inclined to invest in another movie either, will you?
Well, these guys do it for profession, so they will.
Okay.
But he wanted to talk to me about his potential liability in the young lady's death.
Would he have liability? I mean,
I'm not a lawyer. Well, not a practicing lawyer.
Yeah.
And certainly never in the PI world.
Right.
But my guess would be probably not. But it doesn't mean he won't get sued. If I were a personal injury lawyer, I would sue everybody I can think of, down to the guy who cooked dinner that night.
Yeah.
And let the chips fall where they lie later. So I told him he'll probably get sued, but probably have no liability.
Yeah, hopefully not.
That's what I believe. I don't know. But surely this young lady's going to sue everybody, this young lady's child or husband or whomever. It's going to sue everybody they can think of.
Well, that's usually the case when someone dies by an accident.
Yeah, well, they don't know who's liable yet, so I don't fault them for it.
It's going to be a mess.
But I do think that my guy will get named.
I hope not. Well, I know, yeah, he will. Everyone will.
I think he'll get named. I don't think he has any culpability, and we'll probably get out early, but after he has his deposition. But he explains, look, I had no control at all. I gave someone $1 million 6 months ago and hadn't thought about the movie since. But it doesn't mean he won't get sued.
Right. Well, so going back to tragedy, how did you come up with the name Curse of the Chippendales? Was it?
Well, it wasn't told in the documentary, but Vanna White's fiance was our first police officer. Mm-hmm. And Vanna and John was killed in a helicopter crash. One of our original choreographers, a guy named Henry Flores, died of testicular cancer. Mm-hmm. Of course, Paul Snyder died, Nick died, Steve died.
Wow.
So that's where I got the idea.
Makes sense.
I mean, there's only so much story you can tell. And they wanted to keep it focused, my director and my co-producer.
Right.
But that's the backstory.
Well, it all does make sense. It is a tragedy, and it does make for fascinating viewing, to watch it.
It's fast. It's a very fast-paced 45-minute episodes.
And you want to binge watch it, which I did.
Well, if you do, then you'll see it within a week, and then you can cancel without being charged. Did I say that?
Right. But it's really well done. I'm glad you did. I really hope you're able to turn into the actual series. I think so.
Well, we'll see. As I say, we're in talks with people.
Right.
But I got nothing concrete to say there because there's nothing there.
Well, are you constantly working on multiple projects at once?
Well, I've got 3 projects right now that I'm attached to. There's one, a gay themed musical. There's a right-wing documentary, a docudrama on a very famous evangelist in the 1800s. And I'm doing basically a black reboot of Quantum Leap.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
So those are my 3 current projects. Plus, a lot of miscellaneous, like I said, talking to executive producers and advising them and investing and whatnot.
Well, things always come up, which is exciting. So what is your favorite thing to do?
Aside from watching movies and working in movies, you mean?
Well,
a hobby?
Well, no, is making movies your favorite thing? Is watching? I mean, what is your favorite?
No, I'm trying to understand. Are you asking what's my favorite thing in the industry or my favorite thing in life?
How about your favorite thing in life?
I am a Yelp hobbyist.
Really? Okay.
I have almost 800 reviews up there. I'm what they call a gold elite. I've done it about 8 years. I get invited to a lot of soft openings.
Okay, nice.
Whatever lady I happen to be dating at that point in history gets invited to a lot of restaurants to review with me.
Nice.
And that's my hobby.
So has it been put on,
I'm sorry?
Has it been put on hold because of COVID, or have you?
No, absolutely not.
Oh, good.
You just review it, the quality of the food without the ambiance of the facility. I can still go to Maestro's and take a steak to go.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Well, that sounds like it has some sort of story in there. That sounds kind of cool, reviewing.
Well, yeah, anyway, so that's my hobby when I'm not watching movies. And you never want to go watch a movie with. I will stop and start 30 times and go on IMDb to find out characters. And I'll talk your ear off during the movie, which is why I only go at 2 p.m. when there's no one in the studio. Because I'm keeping my phone on because I've got to have IMDb.
Right. Okay.
So I go at 2 p.m. when no one's in the theater, or 10:30 or 11. And I find a little corner where my phone won't bother anybody. And I watch movies.
Wow.
Here's a shameless pitch for AMC for those of you near the Grove or the Americana. For $20 a month, you get to watch 3 movies a week there.
That's a pretty good deal.
They call it the A-list, yes.
Right.
So I take advantage of my membership.
Oh, good. That's good. Well, so what's the latest movie you've seen?
Well, I'm going to see Doom tomorrow.
Okay.
But I saw the Tammy Faye movie recently.
Ooh.
I saw the Marvel Asian movie, something Chang, I think it was called.
Oh.
A slew of them, I've probably forgotten some.
But you're always out there. Well, that's great.
Well, I'm only a few blocks from the Grove, so.
Just walk over.
Yeah.
Great. All right, so I have to ask you, is there anything you wish you could have done differently regarding the Chippendales?
No.
That's awesome. That's great.
It went well. It was very good for me. I wish I could have stopped Nikki's murder. If I had been there, maybe I could have. But aside from that hypothetical, I don't know that there's anything I could have done.
What do you think would have happened if Steve never had Nick killed? Do you think they would have eventually killed each other anyway because of the extreme hatred for each other? Or
I think Nick was talking about creating a competing company. And I think they would have probably sued each other and settled it. And everyone would have gone their own way. But Steve didn't know that Nick was thinking about starting his own business.
Oh.
But that didn't stop Steve anyway from trying to kill the boys in London. So maybe he would have still tried to kill Nick as a competitor. Who's to say?
But why would Steve would want to kill you? I mean,
I would have been convenient because I was supposed to be in the office. And if I were in the office when Nick was being killed,
yeah,
it would have been convenient. The fact that I wasn't there is why he never did anything later, because I was nobody. 10% meant nothing.
Oh.
After Nick died, he did the touring show. I'll never know if I got a proper accounting. I know he went to Europe and I didn't get a nickel.
Wow.
So who's to say? I was just a little gnat.
But you did so much.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm telling you from his perspective, I'm a realist. I wasn't worth killing on my own.
Well,
Just were I there.
Well, it makes for definitely a fascinating series, you know, and I think people would be really engaged watching it. If anything, just a look into history, what things were kind of like in.
Well, if you're a millennial woman today or a Z woman today, it would certainly give you a history of your mother's life that you had not yet explored.
They've got, Mom, you did that? Really?
There's an interesting movie, and I don't know how much more time we have, but there's an interesting movie called Valley Girls. Now, the remake of Valley Girls starts off with a young lady lying to her mother about where she's going. Some boy beats her up or whatever, and the mother has to go pick her up. And of course, she's a liar. So the mother takes her home and starts telling a story about a rock and roll star.
Oh.
And it turns out the mother was the cohabitator with the rock and roll person, but the daughter never knew that. And apparently there was some famous song that was always played on the radio. And the daughter said, "That's about you? You were cool back then, Mom." Famous last words.
What happened?
So, even it's the remake of Valley Girl. It tells that story.
Oh, wow. Has that been done already, or?
It's the remake. It's out there now.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. Oh, wow.
But that's basically a mother telling her story to the daughter, wow. Which is why the mother wasn't terribly upset that the daughter lied and felt inclined to tell the story.
I'll have to check that out. It sounds interesting.
But that would be true of the women, the girls back then. Excuse the pejorative, ladies. Well, the girls that went to Chippendales who are now women.
Okay.
They were college kids. I don't know.
Well, from the footage, it looked like a lot of older women were there too.
Well, there were women there, but predominantly it was the 21, 22. I was going to say 18, but you have to be 21 to get in. Right. So no one ever had a phony ID. I mean, who would ever think of getting a phony driver's license?
Okay, well, back then it was so much easier to get a phony ID, though, right?
I don't know where you live, Sophia, but if you go to Alvarado, where on any weekend you can get a passport. So I don't know.
See, all right, I'm sure there are a lot of fake IDs. Okay, and the club got busted a few times too.
Well, some of them we got busted because we did things wrong, but a lot of times we called the fire department on ourselves on slow nights because bad press is better than no press at all. So if we would leave the 11 o'clock news saying Chippendales raided, free advertising.
They're smart. That's smart. Okay, now, but what?
Ultimately, they got us. They shut us down, but it was a good run.
Well, okay, but it's but you get reopened though. A few times they've shut you down, but you just reopen right away though.
Yeah, but at a point in time we lost our liquor license because there were too many problems.
Oh, okay.
Boys and girls were exploring biology on people's lawns. And they found needles on people's lawns and illegal parking blocking driveways.
That's what it's like in West Hollywood after the Halloween parade.
Well, there you are. I like that parade, by the way.
It's part of the show. I mean, a bunch of those guys could dress up like Chippendale dancers.
Well, I like to give out candy early in the evening and run up to West Hollywood myself. So
really? Okay.
You don't have to be gay to enjoy that parade. It's fun.
Yeah, it's all in fun. Well, it seems like the whole Chippendales was all in fun.
Well, I learned a lot. I made a lot of money.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
And if you have a chance to do it again,
I'd do it all over. Okay. I think I probably would have handled my marriage differently.
Oh, were you married during that time?
The latter part, yeah.
The latter part, yeah.
I wasn't one of the world's best husbands.
Well,
I've learned from that too. Well, I'm 68. I can look back and say, that's what I should have been. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to do this. or that.
Well, but
But
you loved
it's
it.
it's revisionist history now, Sophia. So
Well,
it all played out the way it was supposed to, I suppose.
right? Now you can turn it into a series and make other series and movies and TV. You're in everything, film and television and documentaries. And I think that's incredible.
I'm busy. That's why people should go to Instagram at Bruce Nahin and follow me, because I tell interesting shit.
I love
I
it.
also promote a lot of young people
As a,
on that Instagram.
as a manager or just as an
No,
influencer?
my way of using, well, yeah, I guess the word's influencer, but there's no money involved. I just like promoting young actors and directors and movies that I like and stuff, and use what limited celebrity I have for the good of society, I guess.
Oh, good. Good. Now, all right, so when you work, so you also you work on a lot of independent films too, right?
Mostly.
Right.
I don't do many studio films. I like working in the independent space because I like working with young directors and young producers.
Yeah.
There was a poster I saw maybe 10 years ago or so that says, "Be the person you needed when you were younger."
Right.
And I decided that was me.
Oh, good.
So I've been paying it back, so to speak.
All right. So have you done any acting yourself?
Yeah, I've got 40, 50 credits.
Yeah.
A young man who's now deceased named Patrick Swayze and I became good friends. And when I was a film commissioner, and he would want me to go to the set, and I said I'd only go if I had a line.
Yeah.
So some of the lines were kept in, some you can watch, like Roadhouse. You see me walking in the background, but my line's not there. I got cheated.
But you're in it, right?
Yeah, but I gave the line with the thought that I'd be in it, not that I'd be on the kind. I didn't know. I was stupid.
So what did you think of the Patrick Swayze and Chris Farley's Saturday Night Live spoof on Chippendales?
Well, that started when Patrick was telling me he was going to be in New York to do it. And I said, why don't you do something about Chippendales?
Oh, great. Okay.
I didn't write the sketch, obviously. That was Lorne Michael and his staff, but he did pitch the idea of Chippendales to him, obviously, as we know in background.
Right. Wow.
And I guess they came up with something that worked.
Oh, it's a classic, yeah. You know,
Yes, it is.
I still remember that. So it's, of course, Patrick Swayze. Oh my, you know, it's like woo. You know, he was nice to look at.
You're a woman of a certain age. The millennials and Z's don't even know who he is.
It's such a shame. Well, so all right, they have to go to YouTube, Google Patrick Swayze, Chris Farley. It's hysterical. It's just really well.
Watch Patrick Swayze in the Dirty Dancing.
Yes.
There's nothing more elegant than watching him dance with whomever that young lady was. I forget her name, but it was poetic.
It was a beautiful movie, and that's a movie I hope they never remake. I hope they never remake that movie.
They haven't yet anyway.
And they just need new material. But no, Bruce, you are awesome, and I'm so proud of you, everything you're doing, and you help so many people.
Thank you, Sophia.
That's wonderful.